Hello, welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we'll be discussing leadership, business, and human potential, inspiring you to live rich from the inside out. Unlock your creativity, stretch out of your comfort zone, break through your barriers, take inspired action, and achieve epic results. Now, here's your host, two-time best-selling author, speaker, and certified executive coach, Debra Poneman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we're going to talk about topics of leadership, business, and human potential to help you live rich from the inside out. And today I have a very special guest who's very dear to my heart. For over 30 years, Debra Poneman has been a best-selling author, founder of Yes to Success seminars, and a co-founder of Your Years of Miracles mentoring program for women, and has shared her system now and used by tens of thousands of people in every corner of the world to create lives filled with success, abundance, deep fulfillment, and profound self-love. Known as the mentor to the mentors, Debra's students have taken her teachings and become mega successful entrepreneurs, renowned transformational leaders, and New York Times best-selling authors. Many have become millionaires or billionaires, some even household names. But Debra's greatest gift is her deep belief that everyone has magnificence and her ability to convey the belief from her heart to yours. Welcome to our program, Debra.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. You know I adore you, and I've been so looking forward to this.
And it's mutual. Every time I see her, I just want to grasp you and give you such a huge hug.
I know we don't get to see each other enough. Hopefully more in the future, but I'm not coming to Canada because I don't like the cold.
Well, as you know, it's minus 40 today, so I don't think you would have wanted to be hanging out with me today.
It's just, and it's so funny because I'm like, oh, I don't like the cold. I lived practically my whole life in Chicago, and I just moved to California like 2 years ago, and now I'm such a snob, like, oh, you people have to put up with the cold.
That's awesome. Several decades ago, when no one was out there doing seminars on how to create a great life, certainly not women, you started a seminar company that exploded internationally and helped launch careers of thousands of people, some of whom went on to become the household names. And a lot of us have ideas, but we're stopped by the doubts. From what I understand, you were a young woman with no money, no business experience. How did you create such amazing success in your life?
Okay, well, the Cliff Notes version, I think there's Sparks Notes these days, of my story is that I was a meditation teacher and I love teaching meditation, but I was also broke and I absolutely had to put food on the table. You know, you got to eat and do things like that. So I didn't know this concept of you have to do what you love. I just knew I had to make money. So I stopped teaching meditation and I thought, okay, how do I make money fast? And I started selling investments and I was a dismal failure. But my plan was to make a lot of money and put it away so that I could support myself teaching meditation. But you know the expression, we make plans and God laughs. Well, God had a big laugh over me making money selling investments. I never sold one, actually, and it was a commission job. So I was more broke after I left teaching meditation. But everything we're doing, it's never, hardly ever for the reason we think. So I moved to California because that's where I thought everybody made money. And one day, one of my colleagues at this investment company that I was working with invited me to a money seminar. And I thought it was going to be on stocks and bonds, so maybe I could learn how to sell an investment effectively. But this was in 1980, and the man was talking about the law of attraction and about how our minds create our reality. And every cell in my body started vibrating. I absolutely knew without a doubt that that was why I'd come to California, and that's what I was going to teach for the rest of my life. So I quit my job the next day, not a big heroic thing because I was not doing well. And I just immersed myself into studying the great masters of success and prosperity, people like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Florence Shinn and Catherine Ponder and Earl Nightingale. And I put together this incredible seminar where I was going to teach people how to become successful. Well, you mentioned that something about doubts, because I froze. Everything was ready, and I thought, who am I? I'm 20-something years old. I have no business experience. The only thing I've done is failed at selling investments and succeeded at teaching meditation. I'm driving a beat-up 10-year-old Chevy Bel Air that my aunt had left me when she died, and I'm going to go teach people how to become successful, because you remember the name of my company was Yes to Success.
Yeah.
But here's what I did know, and I think this is the key, and that is an idea comes to you because it's supposed to be manifested through you. And that's why we all have different ideas. One person has the idea to be an artist. Another person has the idea to open a massage therapy school. Another person has an idea to be a wedding photographer. Another person has an idea to write books on how to grow orchids. We all have different ideas because the creator, and that's the God of your understanding, whatever he, she might be, the creator can't come down and start writing books on how to grow orchids. So I believe that the creator looks down and looks for someone who has that kind of tendency, who has writing skills, who has artistic skills, who has the ability to bake, and they whisper into that person's ear, open a gluten-free bakery. So I got that whisper that I was supposed to teach those success seminars. And because I also believe that the creator whispers that into your ear at the time of creation, that thing is needed on earth. And I knew that, so I had the idea to teach these success seminars, because if I didn't do it, the creator was going to whisper to somebody else that they should do it. Because have you ever had an idea, Deb, that you thought was like fantastic, but you didn't do anything about it, and a couple of years later somebody did, and you're like, that was my idea? Ever had that happen?
Steals your joy right away.
Right. It's like, wait a second, that was supposed to be mine. I was supposed to manifest it. Yes, you probably had first dibs, but you didn't do it. So what happens is that you take that idea and you get going on it. And I also believe that there will be times when you are going to doubt yourself, but the way to lessen the chances that you're going to doubt yourself is don't tell everybody what you're going to do until you significantly take steps to manifest it. Because what's going to happen is you tell, oh, I'm going to have a show on helping women, interviewing women who are millionaires. Wow. Now, if you tell people that, I think it's a brilliant idea. But you could have run up against the discouragement committee if you tell too many people. All those people who are going to tell you your idea is never going to work. And if you tell people when it's a tiny idea, I say what is sacred should be kept secret. Same root, sacred secret. Your precious ideas are sacred. So if you're going to tell people what you're going to do when it's just a tiny idea, boom, that's never going to work. But if you wait until you've made some progress and it's a small tree that even the discouragement committee can't crush, that's when you can go tell people. And I tell people also, if there's fear, just go out and take a step from which there's no turning back. I was afraid, again, 29 years old, broke, beat up Chevy Bel Air. Who's going to listen to me telling them how to be successful? So what I did was I put my seminar together. And this is what we did in the 80s. I went out, rented a room, and started putting up posters. That's how we advertised back then, 36 years ago. And once the posters were up and I told people what I was going to do, sure enough, the discouragement committee showed up and told me, who's going to come to a seminar on that your mind creates your reality? I mean, that's ridiculous. But the posters are already up. And guess what? I walked into the room, and it was standing room only. And that was the beginning of my career that has now spanned 3.5 decades. And within less than 3 years, my seminar was being taught in 7 countries on 4 continents. And that was decades before the internet. That was when we had to communicate through snail mail and long distance calls. That sounded like because it was those phones with curly cords. And I still managed to get my seminar taught in 7 countries on 4 continents. So I hope that was helpful.
You always amaze me. Can you share with us what other actions that you took that help you become so successful and well known in your niche?
Well, the biggest thing there's two big things. One is build relationship capital. Okay? And relationship capital is this. One of the things, Deb, you know that I teach this, and that is, who is the most important person in the world? And it's the person standing in front of you at any given moment. And what people do is they tend to judge people by how they dress. I mean, there's studies that people judge people on their height. You know, that you give people more attention if you're at a party, if somebody is attractive. I mean, it's craziness. And so what we do, I don't know if you've ever been at a party or maybe a networking meeting, and you're talking to somebody and pouring your heart out to them, and they're looking around the room to see if there's somebody more important to talk to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it happens.
Right? Are you going to want to ever help that person when the tables turn and things change? You never know who's in front of you. And when I did a very early seminar in 1981, there was this cute little UCLA student who came up all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and said that she wanted to be my secretary. I'm like, okay, I don't really need a secretary, but I am going to treat you like you are the most important person in the world because you are standing in front of me and you are all bright-eyed, and I'm just going to love on you and listen to everything you say without looking around the room. Well, that woman did become my secretary because very quickly I realized her brilliance. And as the years went on, and I retired, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I know, but that woman, Marcy Shimoff, went on to become the #1 best-selling nonfiction woman author of all times. And she sold 15 million chicken soup books. Her books were on the New York Times bestseller list for 122 weeks. And when the publisher asked her to write Chicken Soup for the American Idol Soul, which was going to be a lay-down bestseller, the #1 book series of all times and the #1 TV show in the U.S. of all times, she couldn't do it because she was under contract for another book. But they said, well, do you know anybody else who knows American Idol and is a great writer? And she said, absolutely. And I had a best-selling book handed to me to write, besides the fact that I got to interview all the American Idols and hang out backstage and meet, everybody from Steven Tyler to, Simon Cowell, and became buddies with all of them. And it's because I treated that person as the most important person in the world. You never know who you're talking to. But this term relationship capital, I got that from my son because my son is the king of building relationship capital. And he told me that term. He said, Mom, that's called building relationship capital. And that's one of the ways that you can ensure your success, because people want to help you. People want to help each other. That's just human nature. And they'll remember who it is that they want to help when you make them feel important and you make them feel good about themselves and you give them your full attention. Maybe when they're quote unquote nobody's nobody, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then when they become somebody, they're going to remember you.
And I've heard you talk and share different things, and we were just talking about doubt. And you took a 21-year hiatus to be fully engaged as a mom. What was one of your greatest learnings with that?
Well, yes, I did give up my career. And really, I was on this trajectory towards superstardom. I was about to have my own daytime TV talk show. Just was about to sign a contract and with a major producer in LA. And my Yes to Success book was in the hands of also a major New York publisher. And then, as you know, Deb, my daughter was born, and my dreams changed, because one of the things that I teach people is to follow your heart. And I also teach people, of course, to be true to yourself and live in integrity. And where would my integrity be if I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go tape a TV show when my heart was at home in the crib. I wanted to be there every morning with my daughter. I mean, I didn't want to leave her to go to the bathroom, let alone leave her every day to go film a TV show or go on a book tour. So I decided, and one of the greatest teachings that I believe is out there, if you can't decide what to do, just move out of your head and move into your heart, like physically. Take that 12-inch journey and feel what's in your heart, because your heart will never, ever lead you astray. It might be scary, but your heart will never lead you astray. And I gave up my career and I stayed home with my kids for 21 years. And people say, oh my God, that was, so brave of you, and what a sacrifice. First of all, it was not brave. And I was very fortunate to have a wonderful husband who made a lot of money, so I didn't have to support myself. If I had to support myself, it would have been a different story. So I don't want anybody to think I'm a big hero on that level. Second of all, it was no great sacrifice, because I had a blast being a mom at home. I mean, who doesn't want to spend their time making Barbie birthday parties and going to Chuck E. Cheese and jumping in the ball pit and well, I know you had to be in 40 below weather watching your kid on the field today, but even that is fun, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss it.
Right. See, so that was no big sacrifice. And also, if you were put on earth, we all have a Dharma. A Dharma means that which what we were put on earth to do. And I knew that my Dharma was to be a teacher. I knew that my Dharma was to be a speaker. I was the one in the 7th grade who gave the speeches. I was the one who in the 8th grade wrote out the, what did they call it? The will, like what we leave to the 7th graders, because I was a great writer, right? So I knew what my Dharma was. But the truth is that if you follow your heart and you take a year off to be with your mom or your grandma while she's making her transition, or if you take 3 years off to go work in Africa with AIDS babies, or if you take months off to work on a political campaign, which I wish I would have done, and if you take 21 years off to be with your kids, your Dharma is not going to go away. It's what you were put on earth to do. As a matter of fact, you will come back stronger if you follow your heart. I took up those 21 years, and when I came back, my students, people like Marcy Shimoff, people like Janet Atwood, even Deepak Chopra attended my seminar 3 times, but they're there waiting to help you because you help them. That's what human beings do for one another. So, and I also believe that there are people who are waiting to have their lives touched by you. The truth is that a lot of people say, oh, I want to teach happiness, but there are so many people teaching happiness. Yes, but they didn't learn it from you. Everybody has a different angle. Everybody has a gift of the way they will teach something like success or happiness or passion or whatever. There are thousands of books written on happiness, but I have another friend who just had another book come out that was the best-selling book on happiness. Because there are souls who incarnated who are waiting to hear the message from you. So don't make them wait any longer. And now the question about did I doubt? While I was home with my kids and all my friends were becoming best-selling authors, and every time I would turn on the TV, I would see their faces smiling across the airwaves. You better believe I doubted. Of course I doubted. We're humans. Humans doubt. If you don't doubt, then you're a robot. And I don't think anybody listening today is a robot. It's okay when you feel the pain of the doubt, just put your attention on it. You can even put your heart on the area where you're feeling the doubt. You can breathe into it. You can ask it what lesson it's trying to tell you. And there's always a beautiful lesson. But I know that there's this one time where I really, really the doubt just kind of blew me away. And you want to hear the story? I think
absolutely, but I love it.
So one time I was home with the kids, and they were maybe 4 and 2 at the time, and I was, and they were really, really not happy campers that day. And usually I didn't put them in front of the TV, but this was definitely a TV day. And they wanted to watch Barney and that big purple dinosaur thing. And my daughter had a speech impediment. She couldn't say her R's when she was little. And she was like, Mommy, where's Barney? Where's Barney? And I'm like, I'm going to find you, Barney. Can you just sit on the couch and like patiently wait? It was one of those days, right? And so I'm doing a channel check while my daughter is, where was Barney? And as I'm turning the dial, yes, I had a dial. As I'm turning the dial, looking for Barney, I see one of my students on Oprah. And not only was my student on Oprah, but my student was demonstrating the power of the mind using a technique that I had cognized in a meditation, and that I taught my students to show the power of the mind. Now, there was nothing wrong with him teaching this to Oprah. When I retired, I said to everybody, take my material, public domain, the world needs it. Don't even have to give me credit, just use it with my blessings. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with him showing this to Oprah. However, here I am, knee deep in dirty diapers, and here he is with Oprah going, oh my God, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm going to teach this to my staff. I cannot believe how powerful this is, going crazy over this thing that I had cognized in my meditation. So I'm standing in front of the TV and I burst into tears and I start sobbing, because at that moment, I absolutely knew that I had ruined my entire life. I was absolutely sure. So I'm sobbing. The good thing is that it made the kids stop crying, but I am like sobbing and thinking, oh my God, what did I do? That should have been me. That should have been me with the best-selling book. That should have been me, because it was kind of on the same concepts that I taught. And that should be me having Oprah rave about me. And the only thing that kind of shocked me out of my sobbing stupor was my daughter. True story. She goes, Mommy, yes, sweetie. She says, I think you forgot our popsicles. And at that moment, I thought, you know what? Those popsicles are really, really important. So I found Bounty and I went into the kitchen. I'm pouring the orange juice. I made those, orange juice popsicles, and I'm pouring the orange juice into the molds. And I'm mad at God. And I say to God, God, why did you do this to me? That was supposed to be me on Oprah. And I got a little message, and the message was, remember the book. And I was like, yes, I'm remembering the book. That was supposed to be my book. The publisher had my book. I was about to get a gigantic advance. And then the creator said to me, no, not that book. And I got an image in my mind of this book that I had read years before. And it was a story of a man who had died and who had gone to the other side, but then was allowed to come back and share his story. And the story was that he went through this tunnel of darkness, and at the other end, there was a being of light. And the being of light said to him, would you like to see a movie reel of the highlights of your life? And the man said, yes, I would. It was a very short movie reel. It just showed him dancing with his daughter at her wedding and showing his son how to swing a baseball bat, and probably freezing maybe at his kid's soccer game. It was a very, very short reel. And the man got indignant. He says, what about when I brought my company public? What about when my company started being traded on the stock exchange? And the being of light said, all of those moments glorified you. Mm-hmm. And then the being of light said, would you like to see a movie reel of, I don't know if you use the word movie reel, of the highlights of another woman, of a woman who has just passed on, who you knew? And the man kind of indignant and said, yes, I would. And in this book, the man describes that these curtains of golden light parted, and there sitting on like a throne of golden light was the woman who used to take 3 buses just to get to his house so she could clean for him. Mm. And the movie reel started, and it showed her carrying a pot of a soup to a sick friend. It showed her comforting a sad child. It showed her stroking her mother's hair and holding her mother's hand and saying, "It's okay, Mom, you could let go." It showed her cheering at the baseball games for the kids whose parents couldn't be there because they had to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table. And it showed her just going to church and hugging and loving everyone up and saying, "How you doing today?" And then the being of light said, "You judge this person as being such a sad, pathetic person. But the truth is, her life was filled with joy." Mm-hmm. And then the being of light said, "And when you get here, you find out that the only thing that really matters while you're on earth is how much love you give." So for me, at that moment, it was okay.
You got me going too.
Right? But at that moment, it was okay that I was not on Oprah, but that I was pouring orange juice into the molds, because all I did with my life was I gave love. I gave love to these 2 little human beings, and who were teaching me more than I could possibly know. I was on another interview, and the interviewer was reading my bio where it said that I studied with some of the greatest masters of the East and the greatest masters of the West. And then she added, until she retired, to study with her 2 greatest masters, also known as her children.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
So sorry.
That's okay. I'm holding it back. So what comes to mind is when people are listening to this and they're thinking, I'm making this choice right now. How do I still continue to believe that what my Dharma is, or what I believe in my heart to be true of what I'm meant to be here to do? How do you help someone know that it's not gone?
Well, first of all, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that everybody should give up their careers and be a mom at home. That was just me. Mm-hmm. I had the perfect circumstances. I had a very wealthy husband. I lived in a very supportive community. And also I did a lot of nonprofit work. So I don't want to say that I stayed home and, churned my own butter and sewed my kids' clothes. I can't even sew on a button. But, and also I want to say that I believe, I know this is kind of woo-woo, but I believe that our children's souls before they're born choose us. And I believe that my kids chose me. And because I was going to choose that for them. But I have to tell you, our daughters need to see us out there being successful. Our daughters need to see us being true to ourselves. Our daughters need to see that women can make it in the world. We need to be their role models. And it doesn't necessarily follow that when you're home with your kids that they're going to turn out better. I know plenty of people who work full time and their kids are raised by nannies or aunties, or I know kids in the foster system who have turned out incredible. We had foster kids in our house. Sorry.
You're such a big heart.
So
I love you, Debra.
I know. I just think about my kids, and so many of them at Christmas time. And, they were sometimes kids that got in a little bit of trouble. So anyway, it's hard right now, but, it's hard. Anyway, it's hard knowing where they are now, and I just want to keep on taking care of all of them. But anyway, it's just not necessarily so that our kids need us full time, but what they do need us to do is to be true to ourselves, because our kids are so tuned in right now. These kids who are here, if you do not walk your talk, if you are not in alignment with what you say, they see right freaking through you. Let me tell you, that is the truest thing I've probably said today. And it's, that expression, your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. There is nobody that applies to more than our kids. You could talk until your face is blue. but they absolutely watch us and they internalize who we are. And so I think that it's great that people go out and work as long as you're true to yourself. And now I forgot what the question was.
But how do you help people shift when they know that they have this gift, and let's say it's a teacher? How can they say, you know what, I've chosen this now because this is what I feel I need to do in my heart, and I know the time will come when I still can share this gift that I feel like I've meant to do?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. The thing is that when the time is right, then that little voice is going to say to you that the time is right. Then you have to let go. Now, I'm going to tell you two stories, okay? One is, I actually have this written. Oh, okay. Okay. This is from my very, very dear friend. Her name is Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you know her, but she's a fabulous inspirational teacher. You know Lisa.
I do.
Right. So Lisa's great. And she says, I love this so much. See, a lot of people, they use excuses. They do have this fear, and they're so afraid that they get paralyzed, right? And they don't move ahead. And she says, you will be afraid, but it's not the wrong dream if you're afraid. It's the right dream if you're afraid. And this is where most people get stopped. But your dreams have to be bigger than you. You have to leave this world a better place because you were here. And Lisa goes on to say, she tells this amazing story about Martin Luther King and how he was afraid, and that God spoke to him in his heart. And he said, because he gave Martin Luther King such a big job to do here on the planet. And when Martin Luther King was afraid, he heard God say, I will give you everything you need. So I want everybody to hear that. I will give you everything you need. He said, march on, Martin. You see, he was more committed to his assignment than he was to the fear. And that's the problem with most of us. We get stopped by the fear, but what you have to do is you have to say to that fear, you have no power over me. Stop telling me what I can't do. Just stop it.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. I am the creator of my own destiny, not you.
And that way people don't make their decisions driven by fear, because then they end up with regret.
Absolutely, honey, 100%. If we're driven by fear, and again, it's following the heart, following those breadcrumbs that will lead you to your destiny, and the heart has to lead the way. Sometimes you can even physically ask your heart to lead the way. And I'll tell you something that I did, and this is true confessions. When I knew it was time for me to let go, I always say, my kids were about 18 and 21, and I was still reading them the Harry Potter books to bed at night. No, I wasn't. I wanted to, but they're like, Mom, we could read ourselves. But anyway, when my kids were older and I knew that it was time for me to start speaking again, I was gripped by fear, and I kept putting it off because I was the only show in town. In 1980, I was the only person who taught these principles of success and the law of attraction. Now, in 2012 or whenever it was when I came back, there was somebody teaching the law of attraction on every street corner. And people were teaching it through the internet. And people had built up lists of 100,000 people. And all I had on the list were the other room mothers, right? Yes. So here I was, knowing that it was time for me to start again, but I just kept hanging on to thinking, acting like my kids still needed me. And I remember one day, Marcy Shyloff and Janet Atwood, they actually did an intervention. And the intervention was, they sat me down and they said, when are you going to stop pretending that your kids still need you and get back on the speaking circuit? And I remember thinking about that and saying, you know what, guys? I don't know if my kids ever really needed me. Like I say, there are plenty of kids who were raised by their grandmas and they're absolutely sterling human beings. But I said to them, what I do know is that I need them, because here I go again, because to me, one, I love you, mommy, is worth more than 1,000 standing ovations. Well, I have to, as long as we're here, I have to show you something. Hold on one second.
Okay. Debra has such a beautiful heart. She is so loving and giving to the world. And I know that this is going to be priceless.
Well, this is, a lot of my friends, they have all of these, awards and stuff all over their wall. And I have this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
They gave me an Academy Award.
I love it. I love it.
And then I'll show you my other prized possession. When my daughter was in shop, industrial arts, yay for equality, that the girls get to not just go to home economics, but for Mother's Day, they were all supposed to make something that was one word that described their mother. And, the kids were doing love and comfort. And my daughter made me this.
Oh, crazy. Oh my gosh, that's priceless.
My other prized possession.
I have to share a story with you then, Debra, because I was watching the TED Talk of Amy Cuddy and read the book Presence. And in her book, she was talking about having the victory stance, how you raise your arms and you're like, yes, and how you should do that to mentally prepare you for your game. And my son was on a golf tour. And before he would start the game, I'd say, Nathan, you need to put your arms up and you need to go, yes. And I would say, hey, to his buddy, and I say, come on, you got to do it too. I want you guys to do really well. And finally, I'd start walking by and they're like, my mom is crazy.
High five, girl. I love it.
So that makes us both crazy Debras.
That's right, crazy Debras. And the kids love to have a crazy mom, they roll their eyes, but they love it.
I know. And I'm going to go back to our other interview questions, but I still have to ask you one that's just still sitting on my heart. Is resistance seems to appear when people start moving forward. And some people quit and some people figure, I'm just going to struggle a little bit more. What advice would you give to those people who are pushing forward?
Okay. So you use the word push, and now I'm going to tell you another story. Okay. I absolutely believe that every day you have to take a step closer to your dream, closer to your goal. A lot of people say to me, I have this job and I hate it, and I know that I want to be a famous author. You know what? Number one, love your job. Give thanks for it every day. Go in with the attitude, how can I serve? But don't let a day go by without taking a step closer to your goal. Don't let a day go by where one day you write the table of contents, the next day you write the forward, the next day you call friends who might be able to hook you up with an agent the next day. So do not put your head on the pillow without taking a step closer to your goal. Okay, because then eventually you can leave that job, but deserve and then desire. And the deserving part is to be grateful for everything that we have in our lives. Okay, so boy, that was a tangent. But here's the thing. All of the challenges in our lives are actually our greatest blessings. There's this concept in Kabbalah called tikkun, T-I-K-K-U-N, tikkun. And that means correct or repair. And each one of us came into this lifetime with things that, according to Kabbalah, which is the Jewish mystical text, things that we are supposed to correct or repair. So why is it that somebody just comes into this life and money is so easy for them? They're like a money magnet. People who are money magnets, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But they have a terrible time with relationships. They're on their third, fourth, husband, wife, whatever, and they're just never happy in relationships. Or somebody else who I have a friend, two friends who just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary, and they are more in love than they were the day that they met. They even say that their sex is better 40 years later. I'm like, say what? That's,
yeah.
But they have some really kind of problems with their children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, their children are having a lot of problems. So everybody has a challenge in this life. But that's why you came here. You didn't come here for the easy stuff. You came here for the challenges. But here's the thing. When the challenge presents itself as just like a little nudge and you know what you should do and you don't do it, then the next time you're going to be like hit over the head with a 2x4. If you still don't do something about it, the next time it's going to be a Mack truck. So when the challenge presents itself to you, even though you are very, very afraid, know that it has a sign on it that says, this is what you came here for. And I say, it's like jumping off the diving board for the first time. Just hold your breath and jump. Just face that challenge, or as we call it, a cocoon, because you are never given a challenge without giving every tool that you need to overcome it. Inherent in that challenge are the tools that you need to overcome that challenge. What we do is we dance around it. We run away from it. And I also tell this story that if we were given $1,000, or let's say $1 million, every time we faced one of our challenges, one of our cocoons, one of our fears, we would get up every morning saying, let me at them.
Truth.
Instead, what we do is we run away from them. We run in the other direction. We think if we go like this, they're going to go away. They're not. It's what you were put here for. So if it's speaking up for yourself, if it's speaking your truth, if it's not being shy, if it's, telling somebody that your relationship is over instead of staying with them for 20 years when you knew 20 years ago it was over. You have to do the diving board thing. Just hold your nose and jump in, because the truth is, number one, if you just do it, it doesn't have to come back as a 2x4 or a Mack truck. And number two, you don't have to die and just have it come back again in your next life if you believe that. But number three is that's when grace is waiting on the other side. That's when all the support you need. You just got to do that tough thing. And all the grace is just waiting for you, like water rolling downhill on the other side. It's like the Creator goes, yay, she did it, victory. And then the Creator says, and now here are all my gifts waiting for you. Just so you know, my biggest fear, was speaking up for myself, asking for what I want, taking my place center stage. I always deferred to other people. And I've always done that. And I've never wanted to ruffle anybody's feathers or upset anybody. But I know that that's my cocoon. And every time I take the bull by the horns and I do it, it's like, that wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
That was easy. And grace really was waiting on the other side. So hopefully, did that help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, okay, here you are with your seminar being taught in 4 continents. Before the internet, you're featured on TV, newspapers around the world, and you're about to launch your own TV talk show. And my understanding is you gave it all up, and you talked about why. But now you're back bigger than ever and have this big comeback in a few short years with your Year of Miracles program. And you've already had over 4,000 paid clients in 50 countries to participate in. Tell us more.
Okay, so here's again, it's back to the relationship capital. It's so funny. I keep wanting to look in the camera, but you're so beautiful. It's so hard to not look at you. But anyway, and I really do adore you. When I did that talk in Canada and you were there, I was like, oh my God. I mean, that was like my most exciting thing. I loved the talk, but I loved seeing you. So anyway, so how did I come back? Again, it's the relationship capital. It's the reason why I was able to come back bigger than ever is that Marcy Shimoff, who now has a presence all over the world, had this idea to teach a course called Your Year of Miracles. And because she realized that she had a miraculous life and that she knew the formula for teaching a miraculous life, how anybody can have a miraculous life. And she thought, who do I want to teach this with? And she thought, there's only one person, my first mentor. The person who first gave me this formula that I implemented in my life, and look at my life now. Of course, she's learned other things subsequently, but I was her first mentor. And she called me up. She said, Deb, I have this idea. Will you teach it with me? We're going into our 4th year. We've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people go through our program, yes, in 50 countries. And again, it's back to that thing. Treat everybody is the most important person in the world, and go out of your way for people. You know, that doesn't mean you sacrifice yourself or you become some kind of doormat, but do people favors, hook people up with other people, you know, but see the God in them. There's this saying by Gandhi. Gandhi says, if you can't see God in the next person you meet, you need look no further. And because I saw that God in Marcy, she asked me, and then also my other friends who I had done favors for back in the day. When I came back on the scene, my very first speaking engagements that I got, you're going to love this. When I came back on the scene,
Yeah.
You ready?
Yes.
My kid's babysitter now owns one of the largest event production companies in the world.
Wow.
Called Viva Creative. They put on the events for Geico, for Mary Kay. They put on APEC. They even here in the U.S. for many years did the presidential breakfast, like the biggest event of the president's year. And I mean, their clients, Audi, these are all their clients.
Yeah.
And when she heard that I was back on the scene, who does she call when they need a woman speaker? Me. You want to know why? Because I didn't treat her like some babysitter.
Yeah.
I treated her like the most important person in the world. Did I know that she was going to own one of the most successful event planning companies in the world? No, I treated her that way because she's a human being, and that's how human beings deserve to be treated. So again, the reason I was able to come back stronger than ever is because I had this whole cache of C-A-C-H-E cache of relationship capital. And again, my son, can I talk about my son for a second?
Absolutely.
So my son, when he was, you know this story, when he was 14 or 15 years old, he started a business where he would go into the neighborhoods in Chicago and he would find basketball players that would be not necessarily Division I. Like Derrick Rose didn't need Daniel's help, but he would find these Division II type kids, and he had a website and he connected college coaches with these kids. And these are kids who didn't know, they couldn't afford to be in an exposure league, and they didn't know how to work the system. Often they didn't even have parents that could help them fill out a college application. My son would go help them fill out their college applications. But he would put on showcases. He did his first one when he was 15. There was a full-page article on Sports Illustrated about him when he was 16. It was why college hoops coaches seek the advice of a 16-year-old scout. So my son got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids college scholarships. And these are kids who would be flipping burgers or worse if it wasn't for my son. And he didn't take a penny because these kids didn't have a penny. And because the college coaches there's NCAA rules, you're not allowed to pay scouts. So he couldn't take money from the coaches, and he wasn't going to take money from the kids. And I would say to him, Daniel, you work so hard. Isn't there some way that you can get paid? And he would say, Mom, I'm building relationship capital. And now he's 25 and he has so many things going on in his life. And it's all because, I mean, some of his kids, the number one draft pick 2 years ago was Anthony Davis. That was one of the kids that Daniel found. You can Google Anthony Davis, the kid who discovered Anthony Davis, and read all about it. And so now he is being able to cash in his relationship capital. And again, I could tell you all the things that are going on in his life now, but everybody wants to help him because he's done so much good for other people.
So the number one lesson through this whole thing that people need to take away from is treat the person in front of you as the most important person in the world. And every time that I've had a chance, like when we were at Colin Sprake's event, and you saw me across the back of the room, and it was like, ah! And it was the first time we actually got to meet in person, and I was like, wow, she knows who I am.
Are you kidding? I was so excited.
It was so amazing. And then when I was at the conference, and of course, you know, I show up late and Kara says, Deb, come, we have a seat for you in the front row. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I'm walking to the front and I thought, this is going to be very interesting. So I'm sitting there and all of a sudden when you looked at me and you stopped your whole presentation, I was just blown away. You fill my heart every time I get a chance to talk with you, and you're such a blessing to the world, and I'm so glad that the kids have shared many lessons with you, but now you're bringing them full power and sharing them with the rest of the world and making the greatest comeback I've ever seen.
Thank you. And can I share one more thing before we say goodbye?
Absolutely. I want to make sure that before we go that they know more about the Year of Miracles.
Okay,
and everything else that you're up to.
Miracles, and then I'll just say one more thing before we say goodbye. And I'm sorry that dinged. I thought I turned everything off, but I guess I don't know how to turn everything.
Okay.
But yeah, so Marcy and I started teaching this course called Your Year of Miracles. And Marcy and I, who we both have taught many, many things over many, many decades, we really feel that this is the best thing we've ever done, because number one, we're doing it together. So, and you know, she's the best-selling author of Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason. And she wrote, as I said, sold 15 million Chicken Soup books. And so we combine everything we know about creating success and everything we know about creating happiness and love in your life. And I have to say, I mean, this is like a little bit of bragging, but what better teachers than the two of us who are known worldwide in our niche, but also have had so much life experience of putting these things into practice. And coupled with everything I've learned from being a mom, we're also both meditation teachers from the 1970s. Now you can calculate how old we are. We have so much. It's not like, I know a lot of people teach meditation now, but we've been teaching meditation for over 40 years. So we have the Eastern, the Western, all of this knowledge, and we put it together in Your Year of Miracles. So we're not surprised that this is just blowing up all over the world. And it's a 1-year mentoring program. It's not like a weekend or a week, because what we've also found in our experience is that you can't change your life in a weekend. You can get all, revved up in a weekend, but by Wednesday, your life is probably, when your kid, the principal calls you in because your kid did something, and your husband forgets to throw out the garbage, and your mother-in-law gets down on you. Everything you learned in that weekend is out the window. Yeah. But even a week, even a month, this has been our experience for over 40 years. This has been our experience. And so that's why we do a 1-year program, because in 1 year, your life will become unrecognizable. And then you have these tools for the rest of your life. That's why we're so excited about your Year of Miracles program. And because we're starting our 4th year, we can see what it's done in people's lives. I mean, we have people in their 60s who have never been married who have found their soulmates using what we've taught. We have people who had always wanted to write a book. We have 3 people in what we call our inner circle. It was only 24 people, and 3 of them had best-selling books this year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
We have, I mean, I just could go on, and but the greatest thing I think people get from your Year of Miracles, they come out the other side knowing who they are, feeling empowered, not some false, like, oh, I'm so powerful. That's not false. This is real. They are really me for victory, and just having a huge amount of self-love and a feeling of self-worth. And that's what we love the most about what we teach. So that's my program.
Awesome. And you had something else that you were going to share as well.
So I'll just say this in our final, I just feel like I want to share one more little story from Kabbalah, because I think that there are a couple people who need to hear this. And here's the story. There's a man who said to God, God, all I want to do is serve. All I want to do is to be your vehicle to do your will on earth. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And God said to the man, I want you to push a rock. And the man was like, push a rock? Well, okay, it sounds a little odd, but I'll push a rock. But this guy was an A-type personality, like probably most of the people listening to your show. So what the guy did was he found the biggest rock he could possibly find, because he wanted to achieve big for God. So he found this gigantic boulder and he started pushing it, and it didn't move. But he picked this one, so he wasn't going to go get an easier one. So he kept pushing it, and it still wouldn't move. And he pushed it for hours, and it didn't move. And the hours turned into days, and it didn't move. And the days turned into weeks, and it didn't move. But he was not going to give up. And the weeks turned into months, and finally, he gave up. And God said to him, I see that you've given up. Why? And the man said, well, nothing happened. And God said, what do you mean nothing happened? You are not the same person that you were months ago when you started pushing that rock. You have learned what it is to develop strength of character. You've developed physical strength. You've been out there in the elements, and people see you, and it gives them an inspiration to keep on going. You are a completely different person than you were when you started pushing that rock. So what do you mean nothing happened? And the man said, but it didn't move. And God said, I didn't tell you to move the rock. I told you to push the rock. I'll move it when I'm ready.
I think that message is for me.
Right.
So, our listeners.
Right. So sometimes we feel like we're just pushing a rock and it's not moving. 2 things. One is appreciate what's going on in your life. Appreciate the journey. Appreciate all the lessons. You know, there are no mistakes. There's no mistake unless you don't learn from it. Then it's a mistake. Yeah. If you learn from it, it's a lesson. It's a beautiful life lesson, and that's what you came on earth for. And when it's time to move, the Creator will move it. That's not up to us when it's going to move.
Yeah.
It's up to us to just keep going.
So, Debra, how can people stay in touch with you, share with you how this podcast has impacted their life?
Well, I will give you my email, which is info@yestosuccess.com, YESTO success.com. And I would love for people to email me and tell them how this has impacted their life. That would be so fantastic. That would just make my heart totally, totally sing. So info at yes-to-success.com, and those go into my assistant's mailbox, but they all come into my mailbox as well. So I would love that. And that's it. They could read more about what I do at yes-to-success.com, or of course, if anybody wants to join us for your Year of Miracles, at youryearofmiracles.com.
That's wonderful. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. You have been a special guest to me, and I know that we have a lot of similarities. We're going to be both crazy Debs together with that victory stance, and we'll be embarrassing our children, but it's all good because they do love that love and support, that we're their biggest cheerleaders. And also for the people in their organizations and businesses, step up, put that victory stance for your team, and make those people the most important person in your world. I want to thank everyone for listening to the Millionaire Woman Show, and send us an email at Debra@DebraKazowski.com. Send Debra an email at info@yes-to-success.com. Make sure that you're sharing this with your friends so that they can have the same type of results in their life that you're achieving. Give us a 5-star high five. Join us on iTunes. And one of the things that Gandhi said is go out and be the change in the world. So go out there and take those actions that you need to take to get to your next level. And go out and make today great.